So it was a Tuesday evening when I messaged my wife these words. Yep, not my finest moment. But before I could press delete, I saw that dreaded word, typing. And within seconds, I received an onslaught of angry emojis and words not quite fit for this stage. But I'm interested. By a quick show of hands, who thinks that my wife's response was fair, justified? All right, this person's got 2 hands up. I get it. But let me retell the story, because I want to see if your opinion changes. It was a Tuesday evening. I was making my way home from work when I decided to stop at a supermarket, because I knew that we needed a few bits for the house. And when I was there, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if my wife has sorted dinner. Because if she hasn't, I'll grab it now. So I should ask, have you sorted dinner? Your opinion's changed, right? From chauvinist to, well, that was quite thoughtful. And there are 2 key things that happened here. Firstly, my lazy communication, forgetting the importance of context when communicating with just words. But secondly, my wife knows that question isn't like me, to expect dinner on the table as I get home from work. So maybe a question mark, instead of the angry emojis, could have saved an argument. Responding, not reacting. Let's bring this to the workplace. Hands up again if a manager has ever said to you, if you get 5 minutes tomorrow, can we just have a quick catch up? Ever happened? You then spend the rest of the day stressed, anxious. You get home that evening, get into bed. You can't sleep. What have I done wrong? Am I in trouble? Have I missed a deadline? And then the meeting arrives and it turns out it was a positive one. Waste of stress, right? 2 really common examples of poor communication. But why am I telling you this? Well, in a career dedicated to leading well-being, leadership, people experience strategies across a number of organizations and industries, I've seen the same problem time and time again. And it's at the root cause of compromised workplace well-being. Poor communication and management. It's the gap between intention and perception that's causing the problem. Essentially, what a manager means and what we think they mean. But here's the crucial difference that makes the problem worse. In our personal lives, we feel safe enough to challenge one another, like my wife did, maybe not in the politest of ways, but at least between us we managed to narrow that gap between my intention and her perception. In the workplace, that gap stays open, doesn't it? It lingers. Managers often completely unaware of their poor communication, and often it's not their fault because it's an unlearnt skill. And employees don't feel safe enough to challenge because the hierarchy bears weight. Over 70% of people said that their well-being has a greater impact from their manager than their partner or therapist. Let that sit with you for a second. So my message today is a simple one. Workplace well-being is broken, and before I give you part of the solution, I'm going to tell you how we got here. So we still have old attitudes that exist in the marketplace. Grow up, get on with it. Some organizations take a very reactive approach, relying on employee assistance programs. Essentially, here's the number to call in case you break down. That's an important service, but when it's delivered in isolation, it lacks impact. Some view well-being as a list of benefits or rewards, cycle to work schemes, subsidized gym memberships, free fruit Fridays is a good one. And others take a bit of an events and a campaigns approach, filling up the diary with globally recognized well-being days. And then there's the big one, where we are today. A saturated market full of technology-driven solutions that gamify well-being, all claiming to have the complete answer to your culture and well-being needs. But now we're seeing organizations pull their investment in workplace well-being. And you know what? Rightly so. Because the so-called solutions, they're not solving the problem. The best way to sum this up is with a great quote. The environment always outweighs good intention. Think about it. You turn up to the office, there's an amazing state-of-the-art gym, smoothie bar, an office dog called Bob. But when you sit down at your desk, and you open your emails up to vague, passive-aggressive feedback, suddenly all those perks are wasted, aren't they? Businesses have the right intention, implementing everything from Wellbeing Wednesdays to workplace yoga, but if the environment is still a place of poor communication, compromised relationships, well, you've already lost. The environment always wins. The best way to underpin the importance of the environment is by having a look at Zubin and Spring's model of vulnerability. Now, there are 4 things that make us more or less vulnerable to compromised workplace well-being. We have genetics, childhood, lifestyle, and lastly, the big one, environment. Some of us might be genetically predisposed to certain mental health and well-being conditions. Maybe anxiety or depression runs through our bloodline. Maybe we had a compromised childhood, which is impacting our well-being in later years. Lifestyle is about the decisions that you make day to day in the way that you eat, sleep, think, move. That's on you, right? And then there's the environment, the places, the people that we surround ourselves with. We contribute to our environment, but we're also influenced by it and succumb to it. But if you think about it, these first 2, genetics and childhood, well, they're out of our control because they're either part of us or have happened to us. The second 2, however, well, they're firmly within our control. Let's have a look at this graph. And what this graph shows is stress against vulnerability. Now, I want you to imagine that you're here. Low vulnerability. Maybe you don't have a genetic predisposition, you didn't have a compromised childhood, but now you live and work within really toxic environments. What's happening is you're increasing your vulnerability. So at lower levels of stress, you sit on this side of the graph. And this side of the graph represents poor workplace well-being, the path to ill health, burnout. Similarly, maybe you're here, a higher vulnerability. You do have a genetic predisposition, or you did have a compromised childhood, but now you live and work within really rewarding environments. You're decreasing your vulnerability, so at higher levels of stress, you stay on this side of the graph, which represents positive workplace well-being, productivity, efficiency. Why is this important? Because it demonstrates that the environment has to act as the foundation or springboard that then enables you to lead a healthier life. Think about it. Would you rather have somebody in the workplace that's an ultramarathon runner, smoothie drinker, meditates 5 times a day, but has toxic relationships with their manager and colleagues and a deep sense of psychological insecurity? Or somebody who doesn't necessarily take the best care of their personal well-being, but has a deep sense of belonging, meaningful relationships with their colleagues, would recommend their place of work to their friends, their family. That's workplace well-being. Let me give you an example that brings this all together. Many years ago, I was asked to work with a leading tech firm, the type of organisation known for offering top-tier benefits, discounts. You know, you walk into the office and you're hit with a scent of sage as you pass the sleeping pods. Yeah, we've all been there. Anyway, I was brought in to align their well-being, their leadership and their people experience plans with their wider business strategy. And what I found was a stark difference between the perception at the top and the reality on the ground. There was one employee's quote. It stuck with me for 8 years. Yes, they invest in our wellness, but they completely overlook our well-being. They give us everything that we need, except the time that we need to enjoy it. That's powerful. Now, when I was presenting my findings to the board, the CEO, let's call her Mary, she was blindsided because my findings didn't match her perception or the glossy PR that they had received. And actually, she's not alone in that. The wider research tells us that over 75% of people last year said that their well-being at work had worsened. 75% of execs said they think their employees' well-being had improved. How does that happen? But again, a gap between perception and reality, intention, perception. Now, my conversation with Mary and the board somehow shifted to family. When I asked Mary what matters most to her as a parent, she said that her kids feel loved, supported, like they can achieve anything that they put their mind to. Beautiful answer. And unintentionally, that helped me highlight the problem. They started to see the need to move away from a facade of perks to a foundation of purpose. Now, we weren't teaching or preaching to treat employees like children. Far from it. But workplace well-being can learn a huge amount from that sentiment, moving from perks and gifts to meaning, to purpose. So what we did is we used Covey's really simple formula of do plus be equals have. Most organizations, including this tech firm, they start at the beginning of the equation, because that makes sense, the doing, implementing everything from Wellbeing Wednesdays to Free Fruit Fridays, without thinking about, well, what is it that we want to have? What culture are we trying to create? What's the outcome? That's like putting bricks down to build a house without thinking about what you want it to look like. Doesn't make much sense. Now, Mary knew that she wanted to have a loving family, which helped her decide who she needed to be as a parent, present, supportive, empathetic, which then helped her define what she would do to get there. Separate work from life, have boundaries, commit her time to holidays and meaningful time with her children. Makes sense. Now, this tech firm wanted to follow the same sentiment as being a parent, creating a culture where their employees feel cared for, supported, like they can achieve anything that they put their mind to. That's the have. So then we worked backwards and thought, well, who do they need to be as leaders before we decide what they're going to do to get there? So we thought, well, how do parents develop their relationships with children? It's called the 3 C's. Connect, consume, and create. We intentionally spend meaningful time connecting with our children to develop our relationships. We make sure that they consume the right information to empower their future, to grow. And we want them to have an imagination, to explore their sense of self, to be creative. So we use those 3 core behaviors as the foundation of their strategy. And I'll give you just 3 quick examples of some of the activities that we use to bring those to life. To connect, we organise reverse mentoring, where we would partner senior leaders with employees, where the employee has to help the senior leader to overcome a personal challenge, to break down hierarchies and build authentic relationships. To consume, we organise mini workshops, where different employees across the organisation would have to present something about their experience from their life or their career. And to create, we held company-wide competitions where teams would form and have to come up with solutions to real-life business problems that the tech firm were going through to keep innovation right at the forefront. Now, if we strip that back, those 3 quick examples, they don't sound overly prescriptive towards health and well-being. But if you think about it, we're helping to create meaningful connections. We're making sure people are consuming information to empower their future. And we're making sure that they're part of shaping the environment of the future, that they're creative. 8 years on, and this organisation still have those behaviours as the foundation of their business strategy. And those activities are still running, and they're seeing their retention metrics improve year on year. Workplace well-being has to start with strategy centred around clear communication, empathetic leadership, and psychological safety. And over time, we'll see a shift from superficial strategies to a more profound systemic approach. Because if businesses want to have healthy, connected teams, then they need to think about who they need to be as leaders before they even think about what they're going to do to get there. Now, if my example at the start with my wife was just a microcosm of the broader message. I know I want to have a long, loving marriage, so I need to be a good communicator. So what am I going to do? Next time, I think I'm going to send a voice note. Thank you, everybody.